Allow the children to handle the budget every year.
It's okay. Off your mind. It's okay.
She
Off your mind. Off your mind.
like me.
Chai! Now wow, people wey suppose talk truth to power don't off mic. And if we talk, now 500,000 they go summer us, call them hate speech. But fear not, Maiyegun don't come. Him go torchlight every corner, nooks and cranny of all these bad people where they spoil our country. So my people make we laugh, oh, yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not the off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Can in the touchlight every corner, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Okay, some people be they holla say they want the power. Chai, them be promise us say we go get light and power. Nah. Them hustle sote they can't get the power. But now they know they do anything with the power. Sure. Every day, dollar just they get the higher power over naira. See them talk say make we off mind. But thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you ladder, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make we shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun diary politico, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. This one not they off in mind, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Person where they do evil, no one make person talk. Them say that Maiyegun, that man too they talk. He too they talk. Say Maiyegun diary, he they hot like pepper. But every day then they take money in bulk. Poor man picking, they the street they hawk. Still them talk say make we no talk. But thank God say Maiyegun don't come. So my people make you laugh, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. My people make you shout, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, oh yo yo. Maiyegun don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo.
Hello there.
Maiyegun làwa mọ̀, làmọ̀ tó lódodo. Maiyegun làwa mọ̀, làmọ̀ tó lódodo.
Good afternoon to you, good morning to you, and good evening to you. Depends on the time you are joining us. So, it is Maiyegun's brunch time. Let me call it the weekend version. Earth hazard or earth alarm that you should be aware of. Nigeria being the poverty capital of the world is not just a name. In 2024, people are being hospitalized. People are being buried because they died from cholera. Do you know what cholera is? This is 2024, by the way. We have about 2-3 sessions as well for this afternoon, but I experienced a serious technical problem, technical glitches, right? Coming on earlier, so we are starting late. You can still share it. It's cholera outbreak in Lagos and 29 other states. They said currently they have a record of 1,240 something people that have been acknowledged to have the disease. 5 people have died in Lagos alone. We do not have the total number of people that have died from cholera. You know what a cholera? I mean, you know what cholera is? What causes cholera? Some says it's because people are dirty. Far from it. It is the disease that you derive from poverty. Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. It is not because they don't have money. Having no access, not having access to safe drinking water, good sanitation, and then a sewage system. So I'm just going to drop this quick, okay, and then see if I could also cover the parts where a part of history buried is now unburied. Okay, so the horror of the Nigerian Civil War or Nigeria genocide at the time, the horror committed, by both sides, you will say, and most of it that contributed to why many people will deny their ancestry to Igbo. Why? We are unraveling a lot of them now, especially now that some of them are rewriting history, trying to continue to paint the rogues that, that wrote the no winner, no vanquisher nonsense, okay? Parading them as heroes. So this part of history is coming out now, especially, I think it is unearthed because there are people who are trying to suppress the voice of the Anioma people, trying to kind of tweak their history and the rest of that, now that they are talking about having either having Igbo states or having the rest of them to join their kindreds from Igbo land and many other places too, where they have been cut off and they have been made to deny their Igbo ancestry. So that part of history, I will share that with us at this afternoon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there is a health concern in Nigeria right now, and it is cholera. I was a child when I first heard about cholera, and that was probably like about 35 years ago. And at a point, they celebrated the end of cholera in Nigeria, but it didn't end. Nigeria and Nigerians, they have sunk into the abyss, into the pit of poverty that the criminal politicians have dipped them over the years. So the result of that, every time when we talk about the the consequences of what these rogues are doing on all of us, it doesn't matter which side you belong to, the consequences will catch up with everyone. Okay, so Nigeria is a place where the criminals in charge of Nigeria have found it difficult to provide adequate power supply, electricity. It is a place that they have not been able to provide drinking water in 64 years after independence. Nigeria is still a place where more than 80 to 90% of the country have no access to drinking water. Majority have to provide their own water. But because the entire country also doesn't really have any real or existing sewage system, the one that takes the drainage water, the one that takes controlled sewage system where poop and water they mix. But Nigeria is a place where, apart from the fact that Nigeria, among other countries, Nigeria, India, and I think few other countries are top countries where open defecation means that where you may be walking on the street of Lagos and you will see people pooing like they are doing poop. How do I pronounce it? They shit in the open like that. In the gutter, in the open on the side. People don't even understand what that means environmentally, right? Then, for example, if you go to Lagos, there's a place called Olushosun. Before they gave birth to me, that place has a refuse dump. And it is in the middle of the city. It's in the middle of the state. You know, it's just about 4 kilometers away from Alausa, the seat of government of Lagos. Same thing as well. If that's a Ojota from Olushosun, if you now come out of Ojota and you begin to go back, you want to go and enter, the bus is going to, I'm sorry, the bus is coming from Benin and you are going to 7-Up. You see another dump site there. It's been burning like smoky for more than 40 years. At least it's been like that before I was born at all. And it is in the middle of residential area as well. Okay. Now, every day, apart from the air pollution, all right, smoky, dark stuff that people are just inhaling, dusty and all that, then most of the time, right, there's something called the waterbed. You see all this land where we walk on top, right? How many of you will remember? I may not be so good in science because I am not, okay, but I still remember a few things that they taught us then. I think it was, which one is that? Is it photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the evaporation of water from the ground, right? And then it's the process that then it goes up and it forms cloud, and then the cloud turns to rain. Photosynthesis, Abby? Because you know what was coming to my head? Photosynthesis, kind of. So what that simply means is that every water we use, whether we use them to wash plates, or we use them to wash cars, or every water, that, it all comes from under the ground. You see, at the bottom of it lies the, what they call the water bed. That is where, when you drill for safe drinking water, that is where they get the water from. So somehow, the environmentalists tried their best to control what kind of things we pour on the ground, because they all ended up, they may take decades, but eventually they will end up, soak up, and they will end up in the water bed where majority of us have access to our water, the drinking water, the water we are using everywhere. It cannot be contaminated. It can remain like that, right, for hundreds of years, and it may not clean. I mean, you can't clean it up. Do you get that now? So environmentalists, that's why they are so worried about, it's those one that has, the climate change campaigners, right? If you look at their theory, this is also part of their reason. That all these chemicals, all these petrols, all these chemicals that we are kind of generating, they will all end up on the soil, and they will make the soil more terrible, producing food that are going to be contaminated, food that can cause cancer, can cause other diseases. But these are the countries where they kind of understand the importance of this. But in Nigeria, the rogues inside, the rogues in charge of Nigeria, they would rather loot money. Is it water cycle? I don't know. So, osmosis. I was thinking of photosynthesis is the growth of, that one has to do with a plant, Abby. Osmosis is the, oh, damn it, I should have read about that. Okay, thank you, by the way. So it is actually osmosis, right? That's the process. So anyway, you shall get the drift, Abby. So the bottom line now is that in Nigeria, the government, over the years, so people used to have access to these treated water plants, water corporations, where they have this controlled water supply system. What is it? One true emperor. Anyway, you shall get the drift. That's what that matters, right? So in Nigeria, you have to drill for your own water, or you have to buy. So drilling, and then this has sort of created all kinds of people having to drill for their own water. They do not even, maybe only few do understand the treatment or the right chemical to treat the water before they use them, right? But there are others who don't even have access to those drilled boreholes. They have to resort to water from the stream, water from third parties, where no one even have a clue where they are bringing the water from. There are those who are smart, who understand the waterborne diseases, a lot of things that could be inside water, even inside Nigeria, and they treat their water well. And it is simply because the government is not there, right? So now when we hear the news that cholera outbreak, it simply means the poverty disease, that even if you are denying the poverty that is prevalent in Nigeria, now it is there, right there in front of you, to let you know that some people, they have drank food. I'm sorry, they have drank water that is mixed with poop, shit. They have drank, or they have had food prepared with food with shit. That's what somebody said. You see all those pee and shit, then the rain will fall, beat everything up, the ground will soak it up. They end up in your water system. It's not treated, you are on your own. Only a few people who can treat who have been treating their own water will say they are safe. But if you are treating your water and then you are also eating outside, you have no idea what they are preparing the food with. You may be very clean, very hygiene. Then one single bite from something, somewhere, could land you in the hospital. And for now, they said over 1,000 people have been reported, sick with cholera. That's something you should probably not even expect to hear from Nigeria in 2024. People are so poor, they are drinking pool water. They are drinking pea water. They are eating food prepared with poo and pea water. In 2024. How do you even explain that? Where do you even start from? And guess what? Rather than for this to be a wake-up call, where everyone will just be like, you know what? Every state, every local government, wherever now, we really, really need to start taking care of providing water, safe drinking water for millions, as many as possible. And we have to do that ASAP, but not in Nigeria. It is going to be turned into a business opportunity for the criminals that absconded from their own responsibility in the first place to milk it. Listen to this guy. There's actually another thing as well concerning this health again, the GMO food and the agenda in Africa too. I'm coming.
Okay, actually, we work with threshold levels, and it's actually anticipated that with the onset of the rain, we will have upsurge like this. It's not that we have not been having cases. Right. You just said that on record now, about 30 states have had cholera cases since...
Of the 36 states?
Yes, of the 36 states and FCT since January. So we work with the epidemiological calendar, which presently we are on the week 24. So from 1st January to date, in fact, the figure has increased. So we have as at now 1,213 suspected cases, 74 confirmation from 99 local governments of 30 states. So with Lagos leading in the last 1 week, or within this week now, that I'm talking about. So it's something that has been with us since the 70s. You can recall we had a major outbreak of cholera in history in 2021, where we led with over 106,000 suspected cases in Nigeria, over 3,000 deaths as of 2021.
Yeah.
So comparatively now, if you look at what we have now with 2023, we have 62% reduction. So a lot has been going on into the issue of prevention and control of cholera, which is predominantly related to provision of water, sanitation, and hygiene infrastructures.
Right.
And you know that this is a subnational level intervention that needs to be in place. We have been working in consonance with the states. That's why we deem it fit in 2022 to actually create a department called Subnational Support Department, which I led. It has brought us closer to the states and local government, interfacing with the Governors Forum, where we are actually telling them that they have a lot of stake to do.
What in specific terms? I mean, what specific strategies are you asking the subnationals, the states, to put in place to, you know, not just prevent, but at least to check the, you know, seriousness of this outbreak?
Yeah, first of all, what are the drivers of cholera?
Right.
Inadequate wash infrastructure, like I told you. Then the challenge of open defecation. Recall as far back as 2018, the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, actually declared state of emergency on open defecation.
Yeah.
We are working towards the deadline of 2025, even though we might need to extend it, but at least there's political will in that direction. So
Nigeria is top 2, if not the number 1 in open defecation.
Yeah,
really
but the good thing is that there is political will now. We are monitoring trends. We are engaging with the critical stakeholders to see that this is actually nip in the bud. Well, you also look at the issue of climate change now. So some of these things happening now is related to the flooding. Right. So it's a disease already associated with the rural poor, economically downtrodden among the societies. So we know that issues of poor infrastructures, open defecation with the onset of the rain, there will be contamination of water sources, available foods, whether it's cooked food or raw food.
Yeah.
So these are the drivers that are bringing this cholera to.
So it comes from all of the combination of all of these, which actually starts with poor planning, poor, terrible leadership. We don't care. It's true. Open defecation. Nigeria is number 1 in the whole world, where people still kind of have to shit in the open. You know, there was a time that we were joking about shortage. Many homes don't even have toilets. Yeah, in this 2024. As ridiculous as that may sound, there are homes that don't have toilet at all. And all they have to do, and there are hundreds of people living in some of these communities like that. Short put. You have to do your shit in a polythene bag, a plastic bag, then tighten it up and just throw it into the bush. So then there is flooding. Flooding because there are no drainages, no planning. Okay? So when it rains, even if it's just like 1 centimeter rain or so, then everywhere is flooded. You see all those sheets, all those this, all those that, you just pack everything, put them inside people's homes and pack them everywhere. Now, you know, if you've lived in Surulere, I know a few other places like that too. If you have lived around Masha Kilo in Surulere, you know Masha? When it rained back then, people have to move everything on the top of their beds. Sometimes the rain will be so much that it will swallow your bed and you just have to move everything else to something higher. And I'm talking about horrible, you know Lagos gutters now. And this is how many people actually grew up and, you know. So when you have all of these things around, because the following day is going to be sunny, maybe, So then people will bring out all of these stuff and they'll begin to dry them, and they will be waiting for the water to go away, and they just move on and back to their normal life. They have no idea that all of this water, all of these things, right, they end up where? They end up in your boreholes. They will contaminate them eventually. It's just a matter of time. And then this Nigeria, where Nigeria are too tough now, people can't go get dysentery. I've been waiting to call that thing again. You doctors, dysentery, when you shit, when you vomit at the same time, and you are losing the liquid in you so fast that you are going to need a drip to stay alive, or else, Baba, if they don't give you drip quick to replace the liquid in your body, Baba, you go like that. Before you know it, strong man. You go see death face to face like this. Cholera. In 2024, they are teaching people to stop defecating in the public. They're making videos explaining that. Listen to our Aproko doctor. He has something on that.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control.
I think it's a shorter one.
See, you have to be very careful where you eat and what you eat, especially now, because there is currently a cholera outbreak that is collecting people like this. As at the time of this video, at least 30 people have gone to glory and many people are currently in the hospital. This cholera is not your normal diarrhea. It gets inside your body, switches on a toxin. Before you know what's happening, your body is secreting water from your bum like a tap. This is what can lead to severe dehydration, kidney failure, and even death if it's not managed properly. Jesus! It has happened. You can see this tweet. How do you now prevent yourself from getting cholera? Number one, ensure that the water you drink is safe. If it's not bottled, treated, or certified, please avoid it. Number two, avoid raw food. And make sure that even the water that is used to prepare the food is safe for drinking also. Number three, make sure you wash your hands with soap and running water, especially after using the toilet. We are adults. Let's behave like one and ensure that the area around your toilet is clean. Your toilet itself should be clean. If the food is not thoroughly cooked or still hot, please avoid it. Any of this undercooked street food, yabasira does not look like it's clean, please avoid. If you're going to eat fruits, make sure that the water you're going to use and eat the fruit and the vegetable is properly cleaned. And then lastly, if you've not been vaccinated against cholera, please go and get your vaccine. As you're watching this video, you already know how to be your brother's keeper. Let them know.
Share it. You can see more on health tips if you go onto that guy's YouTube channel, Aproko Doctor. Aproko Doctor. Go onto his channel, you see a lot of, health tips, especially relating to Nigeria, where you do not have the government establish the system to support or provide support for many vulnerable people. You will find this YouTube channel very, very useful, right? But here is another info put out by a newspaper in Nigeria, Guardian.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, has reported a significant cholera outbreak in Lagos State, with increasing cases across Nigeria as the rainy season progresses. Between January 1st and June 11th, 2024, there have been 1,141 suspected and 65 confirmed cases of cholera, resulting in 30 deaths across 96 local government areas in 30 states. Individuals most at risk include those with limited access to clean water and sanitation, residents in areas with poor hygiene, people consuming contaminated food or fruits without proper washing and cooking, individuals not practicing proper hand hygiene, populations affected by man-made or natural disasters such as floods leading to overcrowded conditions, caregivers for cholera patients and healthcare workers without proper precautions. To mitigate the risk of cholera, the NCDC advises water safety. Boil water before drinking and store it in clean, covered containers. Hand hygiene. Frequently wash hands with soap and clean running water or use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Food safety. Ensure food is well cooked and wash raw foods like fruits and vegetables thoroughly with safe water. Sanitation. Avoid open defecation. Properly dispose of waste and maintain regular sewage clearing. Healthcare. Seek immediate medical attention for sudden watery diarrhea and avoid self-medication. Finally, if you or anyone you know experiences sudden watery diarrhea, do not self-medicate. Visit a healthcare facility immediately. Stay informed, stay safe. Together, we can prevent cholera. For more,
so that information is very important, and don't think you are safe from it without understanding it. Keep clean environment all the time. Wash your hands. Can you imagine that, Baba? Normally, I mean, like, we need to wash our hands when we use the toilet, when we touch things before we eat. The reason why you have to wash your hands whenever you remember that, I've touched this or that, okay? I'm not saying you should become paranoid and be carrying what do you call it, antiseptic wipes around, though. Before you sit down, no, I'm not talking about that one. Those are people who understands what it means if they ever get infected by any of these diseases. Their immune system may not be able to stand anything, so they were extra careful. There are so many of us who have strong immune system, fine, but this immune system can be weakened by some very strong waterborne, food, and environmental diseases. It can weaken all this your immune system, and your entire system can break down. And strong man, Baba, you go cry, you. So sometimes we always need to take precaution, especially in Nigeria now. A lot is happening. You remember I told you, whatever happens, wherever you are in Nigeria, whatever you are passing through in Nigeria, whether you are for the rogues destroying Nigeria or you are not for them, it doesn't matter. Do everything you can to make sure that you don't fall sick. I even gave this advice to the Abobakus, which means I don't wish them bad. I don't wish you evil. Abobaku, defending Tifnumbu, defending APC, Ebekebe, I still care about you. When you lie to yourself every now and then, that's okay. But my advice for you is to make sure, say, you know, fall sick. While of fall sick, very cool. Like sometimes even your money may not be able to save you this time, because cholera can kill you within hours if you don't get help. And I heard that they are giving people the cholera injection now to prevent yourself against it. Those of you who are not afraid of medication like that, I will advise you to go for it. Here you get. Because that person where, what do you call it? The person where we never feel go talk, say maybe it is not that tough. If it touch you, if Nigeria touch you, if you live to tell the story, you are going to tell others to take this simple advice. So everything still fall back on government. A government who sees this. See, there was a report of, I think there was a report of malaria. Okay, let me put it this way. Number one, before you come to the UK, this country, there are some tests they expect you to do. For example, the TB tuberculosis test. Tuberculosis has no cure. So if anybody has anything from it, you will just have to live or manage it till you die, sort of, Abi. So the UK doesn't want you to come here without disclosing it. And if you disclose it while you're asking for visa, you will not come here. Now, if you are coming to this country as well as a visitor, you would have to prove to them that you are clean of, for example, malaria. Listen, you may end up coming here, right? But if you come into this place and then you come in here and you discover that you have malaria, have you seen how the people that had COVID, how they were treated back then in 2020? Malaria is worse than that, the way they will treat person with malaria. That same malaria that you just drink and go and you are fine. If you are living in the UK and you are from Nigeria and you go to the hospital and you say, I'm not feeling fine, I think I have malaria or more, Your GP will tell you, don't say that. You can't have malaria. Well, let me tell you something. That would be someone that is a matured GP. If you carry malaria from any country and you enter this any airport in the UK, from the airport, they will quarantine you. They're going to ship you like, say, you are carrying an atomic bomb. They will treat you as if to say you are malaria, ordinary malaria. Well, I don't know. I call it ordinary. This actually kills a lot of people, though. So imagine they now say cholera. Cholera. One person get cholera for UK. The campaign topic. The council where that happened. Because say that cholera don't kill 30 people in the UK. First, they would have started the evacuation process. They will first quarantine everybody living in that area. They will quarantine them. They can't travel. Nobody can go in. Nobody can come out. Then they will begin to carry out tests on every person until they screened out the ones with that cholera. As they are taking care of them, you see all of the council administrator, the MP from that area, the government of the UK, and everybody, they go collect cholera. Kilofa, how? What happened? How did that happen? Well, in Nigeria, Tinubu probably don't even know about this. No. Why should they? So everybody's going to be just be like, I heard, did you hear about they say cholera there outside? They say, I heard, we will not catch cholera in Jesus' name, my friend. We are covered by the blood of Jesus. Cholera is, we pray against cholera last Sunday. We just came back from 7 days vigil, and they have assured us cholera can never touch us. You know our people now. Don't pretend that you don't know that. There are those, because people are just living on, just moving on. If you go do mistake, can't do beside somebody. You don't get cholera. They will even make a joke out of it. Hey, it there for me, so maybe you don't get cholera. Hey, kind of. And we are talking about contamination. Where just a bit of a drop of it from somebody who has it, you will have it. So everybody's just going to pretend that everybody will be fine, Jare, Maiyegun. There's more things worrying people. So are you now saying that we should not eat on the roadside again? Tomorrow, you will see Nigerians. They will sit next, where they have been since January. You will see Nigerians, they will sit next to the mama put. And then they will be making joke of it. Hey, are you sure say you did not cook this food with the cholera water? Oh yeah. Sort of. And this is supposed to be a national tragedy. It's sort of a national emergency. In 2024, people are so poor that they have no access to good, safe drinking water. They are living in squalor. They are drinking pool water. They are drinking pea water. And they are hoping to be fine. Among other problems, I told you something about the Kenyans. That whatever you are facing in Nigeria right now, the Kenyans, whatever they are facing in Kenya right now, the Nigerians have faced that. And they started facing that under Bukwari. We are talking about this insecurity of a thing. And then we discovered that there are actually external and internal forces whose interest in the minerals or mineral resources in some of the communities where terrorists have wreaked havoc for real. And we said, okay, it's because of those mineral resources. There's also actually another agenda. And this is not my first time of hearing it, but this is the first time I'm actually seeing someone speak about that in their own country, away from Nigeria. And that kind of will make me bring that back to you to say, you've heard about the GMO. You remember when Bokwari went to Washington, and I think it was in 2019 or thereabout. Yeah, when they went to go and buy the Tucano jets. Yeah, you remember now? There were other deals too. That Nigeria was going to be importing food, GMO food, genetically modified GMO. They call it a GMO. Genetic modified seeds, genetically modified food, fruits, stuffs like that. And then what we were told then is just simply the negative side of eating the GMO. That all of these were just because GMO were basically lab created seeds. Are you listening? Yeah. Now, you see, if you have participated in farming process in Nigeria, which I believe a lot of us did participate, right? You know that when you want to cultivate cassava, right? You could easily just go and buy the cassava stems. And this could be from another farmer. Yeah, another farmer who just harvested. Okay, and they have kept some stem for themselves to replant again. And then they will sell some, or they will even give. Listen, even when I was growing up in Odogbolu, in Ijebu, we never used to buy those stems, except for maybe yam, when we have to buy 2 bags of yams, right? Most of the time, we always got them from our last harvest. So let me go to that, okay, which is, if I want to plant yams, I do not need to go and buy yam, 2 bags of yam, and cut them and prepare them for, for planting. I will just take from my barn of yam, from the ones I harvested the last time. But if I don't have any yam saved for planting, then I will have to go and buy. So if I want to plant cassava, I will pick from my cassava stem from my last harvest, or I will just go and buy. There are species of cassava stems. That's cassava sticks, right? There are different species. I knew about that because I participated in farming myself, right? Now, this is like practically basic farming. If you want to grow pepper, vegetables, and all that, you just save from the seed of your last of your last pepper. You save the seed, you save from that, dried, prepared. That's what you're going to go back and plant. And then if you are the type who kind of like chemicals, I swear, see, farming in my own hometown was purely organic. No, sorry, not organic. It was purely natural, rather natural. So I was raised to believe that using fertilizers is like adding chemical to your plant. That was how I grew up. I know it's purely poor like education or information at the time based on these guys, but they were successful. They were harvesting the biggest of their own farm produce. I'm talking about stuff that comes out so well without adding any fertilizer or any chemical or anything. They were so natural. And they could, as you are harvesting cassava, you can be planting another one there. As you are harvesting one, cutting this down, for protein. You see that hole? You can be putting another stick inside. And in another 3 weeks, they are going to start growing again. In another 7 months, you probably will be harvesting again. You can plant on the same land 3-4 times before you can then leave it for another 7 years, 5-7 years. You let the bush grow on it. You let everything. You leave it there for another 7 years. Then you come back, clear it, and you can use it for straight 4 years and about 3-4 cultivation and harvests because there's no chemical added to the soil. For GMOs, they are lab-developed seeds. Okay? They are not your regular seed. If you see a GMO tatashe, they did not bring a tatashe seed. They created a tatashe seed in the lab. And not just that. From this guy's explanation, from the African's perspective, see what this means, because it is policy that when Bokwari signed that he was going to accept $2 billion worth of American GMO food, Nigerians rose. I never heard about that anymore. I'm not going to doubt that there are GMO food in Nigeria right now that people are consuming. It's bigger than that consumption. It is more than that. It is, in fact, another economic war that is not only going to destroy our lands, our soil, it is going to make us completely dependent on this foreign seed. And I think you should know about it.
Do you know it's illegal now for me to share my organic seeds with my neighbor? Yes, it's illegal by law. They even created now a law to give the international organizations rights through patenting of their seeds. Patenting of their seeds. Foreigners to patent their seeds here. And those are the seeds you must use, and you're not supposed to use any other seeds. And that's why there's that discussion of fake seeds, fake what. Today, organic seeds, Lynn, are called fake seeds because they are forcing us to go into the new world order agenda of what we call genetically modified seeds, GMO seeds. GMO seeds are lab-created seeds. They produce food, but with it comes so many factors that raise eyebrows. Number one, Lynn, if you plant GMO seeds, for example, maize or tomatoes, you cannot replant the seeds once you harvest. So what does that tell you? You have to go back to that guy who's patented these seeds and buy from him. You and I, probably, even if it's not our parents, your grandparents, have that small farm in Ushago where you're harvesting maize, and if they harvest 100 bags, they will keep 1 bag to replant in the next season. So with GMO seeds, you cannot do that. So that means they can decide whether they can sell it to you or not sell it to you. So it's about control. Number two, once you plant GMO seeds on your piece of land, on the next season, you cannot plant organic seeds. They will not, it cannot grow, or the produce cannot be up to terms with what you're used to, because it affects the soil structure and composition. And the other thing people don't know about GMO seeds, GMO proper farming is very expensive. If you go on the internet and just research the price of a kilo of tomato, GMO, a kilo of proper tomato seeds, a kilo of proper tomato seeds, GMO seeds, the cheapest will go to about 10 million shillings. The best quality can go up to about 50, 60, 70 million shillings. And that comes the question, does the normal farmer in Kenya or the small-scale farmers have the capacity to invest 10 million in seeds? The output of production is high. If you invest 10 million, you can sell them to up to 20, 30 million. But the capacity, how many farmers do you know have a capacity to put 10 million on seeds? There are very few. So under the New World Order agenda, their main target is to control food and farming land. Because they knew we control the food, we control the masses. And not just about what you eat, but they want to take over the entire agriculture. It states clearly that the entire agricultural land and food production must be transferred from individuals or small-scale farmers to corporations. Do you know it's illegal?
Well, that's a very viable piece of information. and the Nigeria or African politicians are collecting bribes to push all of these agendas in their country, as long as they get paid and all that. So that then brings us to why it has become impossible to end the insecurity in Nigeria, the terrorism in Nigeria, and some other part of Africa. The agenda against Africa is massive. And this one is going to hit home or hit close to home. And don't ever think it is impossible. All it's going to take is just one single policy. And that's it. Everybody is thrown under the... And then this is, for example, for Nigeria, this is a country that has no real health care system to actually care for millions of people that are going to be the victims of this. You know, cancer, blood clot, and so many other internal problems that are going to become, you know, the real things in the few years to come. So I thought you should know about it. Okay. So I've got this reading, and it's quite a piece of information that I think it won't be a bad idea if we have that on the diary. Put it down. See, where is that again? Yeah, I think that's that. So I should possibly just have a copy of this in the comment section. Okay, you can open it, you can download it and have it too, or if you have seen it before, it is the massacre that took place in Anioma land. And who are those who make up the Anioma land? This is a report that I think you should take a look at too. Okay, we have been reading a lot about what happened in the Nigeria genocidal war. Okay, and this is an opportunity for you and me to have something on record, to see that those that Nigeria rewarded, yeah, those ones they call the elder statesmen, rewarded their rogues. Rewarded rogues. People were supposed to actually be tried for crime against, for war crimes. They were decorated as heroes and, you know, whatever. So people who killed harmless people, all because they wanted to vent their rage, anger, frustration, and so on the people that were caught in between the two war faction or warring faction, Anioma land. So I will share that. Let's see, where's my So, and this was done by Odegwe Nwa Okocha. It is reading. I'm going to read that for a few minutes, okay? And that will wrap this session this afternoon. So if you have a chance of being here, first let me kind of put let me put the link in the comments section for everyone who might be interested. So it's a long read. I think it's about 18 pages. That's quite a long read, okay? Well, it's not like steep and what have you. So I said I should let you know if you have anything or you have people that should know too of all this danger lurking around. Talk to them, okay? Because I don't think money will be enough. By any means, money won't be enough to save anybody who get caught in all of this. That's one thing about Nigeria. You just don't know what the next call you're going to receive is going to sound like. You know, you have no idea. Anyway, remembering the massacre of civilians in Anioma land during the Nigerian Civil War. And these are, you know, verified evidence of what went down at the time. So let me put it more on your screen. I know, I hope, oh, that's too big. Yeah, that's enough. So it is reading. You can read with me as well. You can actually read with me on the screen, but you can't read faster than me, because for you to, you know, for you to actually really enjoy this, it's better you just stare at the screen, right? Let me see how it looks like. Stare at the screen. And then, yeah. So I'll start with this. Introduction. Many unarmed civilians were killed in Anioma land during the Nigerian Civil War, fought between July 6, 1967 and January 12, 1970. The war was a result of the Nigerian federal government's attempt to militarily force the eastern region, which had succeeded as Biafra, back to Nigeria. The secession was followed by 3 waves of targeted killings of the Igbo group, mostly from the east in the northern region. In May, June, July, August, and September, October 1966, the Igbo group was the primary target of the attacks. First, 1970. So the Igbo-speaking Anioma people were not part of Biafra, but the old Midwest region on the Nigerian side. They are generally considered as Igbo. So you see all these quotes, right? They are kind of books, interview that you can read as a follow-up, okay, on some of these stories. That's why they are referencing them. Do you understand? Good. So they were classified as pro-Biafra by federal forces and encountered some unique challenges in the war. The conflict got to them on August 9, 1967, when Biafran forces crossed the Niger Bridge, invaded the Midwest, and opened a new phase in the war. The armed conflict in Anioma land was mean, involving the killing of unarmed civilians in many places. This forms the focus of this work. So the work shows that Biafran forces kickstarted this terrible episode by invading the Midwest. Historical fact shows that their atrocities were lower compared to those of federal forces. There were 3 waves of civilian killings in Anioma land during the war. The first involved Biafran killing people of northern descent and non-Nigerians. The second was the Agbo episode, where Ika, micronationalism, bred by fear of being slaughtered by being Anioma, led some Ika into attacking the Igbo, including the Anioma. The third was the killing of the Anioma people by Nigerian troops in Utagba, Uno, Ishiagu, Oguashioku, Ibusa, and Asaba when they overran the area. Literature on the killings in Anioma land is paradoxically sad, yet exciting. It is scarce, but packed with facts. No work appeared on the subject until more than 2 decades after the war, though the facts were known all along to a narrow audience. So Emma Okocha's work on the subject is presented in a gusty manner and contains details on the killings in Ogwashi, Uku, Ishiagu, and particularly Asaba. Stanley I. Okafor's work on the killings in Asaba represents an original eyewitness account of what transpired in Asaba. He opines that the killings were not accidental, as he witnessed Nigerian soldiers armed with a list from which names were called out and victims summarily executed at the Asaba police station. The work of Elizabeth Bird and Otanelli Fraser on the killings in Asaba is a powerful addition to a field in need of more revelations on what transpired in Asaba in those mad days of October 1967. Without being judgmental, the work presented evidence from those present in Asaba when the killings occurred. The work argues that the Nigerian soldiers needlessly killed unarmed fellow countrymen and women for reasons beyond the war. Bird and Otanelli page 2011, the pages 1 to 26. So let's go to the background. Background of the Nigerian Civil War in Anioma land. Many issues contributed to the outbreak of the war. These include the inter-ethnic tensions provoked by the struggle for power among Nigeria's ethnic groups. The immediate sparks which produced the war can be located in the two military coups of 1966 and their consequences for a society torn along ethnic and sectarian lines. On the independence from British colonial domination on October 1st, 1960, Nigeria had many ethnic groups. Among those ethnic nationalities, the Hausa, Igbo, and Yoruba were the dominant groups in the three regions, North, East, and West. The struggle amongst them for power was laced with some religious flavor that made it highly emotive. National issues were often interpreted along ethno-regional and sectarian divides. This ensured that between 1960 and 1966, Nigeria stumbled from one crisis to another. This, it is believed, led to the January 15th, 1966 military coup d'etat, in which over 20 people were killed. The January coup, led principally by 4 Igbo and 1 Yoruba army majors, claimed the lives of some high-ranking civilians and military leaders, including Prime Minister Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Ahmadu Bello, Northern Premier, Samuel Akintola, Western Premier, and 4 high-ranking military officers of Northern and Western extraction. The Federal Finance Minister, Chief Samuel Okotiebo, who hailed from the Midwest, was also killed. Major General JTU Aguiyi Ironsi, an Eastern Igbo, Nigeria's most senior military officer, emerged as military head of state. The fact that the leaders of the coup that produced an Igbo as head of state were also Igbo led to insinuation that the coup was anti-North Igbo plot. This viewpoint created the anti-Igbo riot in northern towns starting from May 29, 1966, claiming hundreds of Igbo lives. It set thousands fleeing the north to safety in their ancestral homes in the east and Midwest regions. Between January 28 and 29, 1966, a revenge military coup by northern military officers took place, killing over 40 Igbo military officers, including Ironsi. Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, a northerner, emerged as military head of state. The outcome of the two coups, the May 1966 anti-Igbo riots in the north and the September 1966 killing of the Igbo in the north and Lagos, did much to set Nigeria boiling. As a consequence of the July and August killings within the Nigerian military, an agreement was reached on August 9, 1966, to post all military personnel to barracks within their regions to stem the bloodshed. An Adeoke Constitutional Conference was also inaugurated on August 12, 1966, to chart a future for Nigeria. 17 days later, renewed Igbo killings began in the north and part of the western region. Taken together, the killings led to the first displacement of over 1 million Igbo people to the east alone. This soured relations between Ojukwu and Gowon, the government of the East and the federal government and the Igbo and most Nigerian ethnic groups. Citing safety reasons, Ojukwu refused to attend meetings of the Supreme Military Council, SMC, in Lagos. Between January 5th and 6th, 1967, the SMC met in Aburi, Ghana, and took key decisions on the future of Nigeria. However, the federal government unilaterally reneged on the decisions after federal technocrats warned against their consequences. Citing the refusal to implement the Aburi Accord, the Eastern region issued a series of edicts on March 31st, 1967, seizing federal concerns in the region in order to raise the funds to implement some part of the disowned Aburi agreements. The federal government retaliated by imposing economic sanctions on the East. On May 30th, 1967, the Eastern region seceded from Nigeria as the Republic of Biafra. On July 6, 1967, Nigerian federal forces attacked Biafra and the civilian civil war started. On August 9, 1967, Biafran forces invaded Midwestern Nigeria through Asaba in Anioma land, reaching Ore in the west before being pushed back by federal troops. The last batch of Biafran motorized brigades crossed the Niger Bridge in Asaba into Biafra on the 9th of October 4th, 1967. But the war continued in the Anioma land because Biafran troops continued to infiltrate the area until the war ended. The killings occurred within the struggle for control of Anioma land between the contending forces. It is important to understand why both groups killed those they considered enemies anywhere they found them. Essentially, the war was an ethnic issue involving largely the Igbo and Northerners. Other groups joined in, but it remained mostly that. For the Biafrans, Northerners and non-Easterners, except the Anioma, were targets. In fact, 7 months before the declaration of Biafra, the government of the East had expelled all non-Easterners, except the Anioma, from the region, claiming inability to guarantee their safety. For federal troops, principally composed of Northerners, the war was a continuation of the massacre of the Igbo in 3 waves of killings earlier referred to. For them, wherever the Igbo were found, brutal treatment was reserved for them. The truth is that the Anioma loathed federal advance into their territory. They were described as hostile to federal troops. Obasanjo in 1980 said that. Besides, many Anioma officers formerly of the Nigerian army escaped to Biafra on the defeat of its forces in the Midwest and joined the Biafran army. Segments of the Anioma civilian populace were slightly pro-Biafra, much to the anger of Nigerian troops. These issues shaped the war and dictated the patterns of killings in Anioma land. Biafran killings of innocent civilians in Anioma land. With the Biafran occupation of the Midwest between April 9th and September 4th, 1967, the non-Igbo residents of Anioma land faced the threat of death in the hands of revenge-seeking Biafran forces. One of the first acts of the invading Biafran troops on entering Asaba was the attack on the Ogbe Hausa quarter, abode of most of Asaba's northern residents. The quarter's history dates back to between 1886 and 1900, when Asaba served as headquarters of the Royal Niger Company and Nigeria. Apart from many northerners in the British Royal Constabulary based in Asaba, numerous northern traders converged there to take advantage of the company's presence. The northern community in Asaba grew steadily, and by 1967, generations of its members knew Asaba as home, spoke the Igbo language fluently, but were still referred to as Undi Hausa people. Biafran invaders killed many residents of this community. Godwin Alabi Isama believes there is a link between the killings and the Asaba massacre we will encounter shortly. The Ogbe Hausa killings drove fear into non-Igbo residents of Asaba. The then young Louis Okunogai of Edo extraction, a teacher in the town's St. Patrick's College, recounted that he escaped through the window of his apartment in Cable Point, Asaba, and fled to Benin to avoid death. Does this kind of tell you why some part of Benin or Edo people actually despises Igbos? This is why this history kind of will tell you more, including some of you who just don't like the Igbos. And you, the Igbos as well, who see other people as, long-time rivals. They will never agree with you. They are this, they are that. Now, can you see where all of this is coming from, right? Majority of you who read the history of Nigerian Civil War You have become the prisoners of this history. You know how you become the prisoners of the history? A lot of you have seen the wrongs done by all sides, and you have taken sides too to continue that sort of, angst against yourself, so to say, right? So you can understand where some of these things are coming from, okay? You have inherited the animosity of your ancestors. But let's continue. An informant resident in Agbo during the Biafran occupation recalled that his family smuggled an Esan family in a tipper lorry to safety, away from the Biafrans. So Biafran troops killed an American Catholic missionary, Brother Roman Wyszynski, who was the principal of St. Patrick's College, Asaba, at Ogwachiuku on April 17, 1968, alleging it was a federal mercenary. So Biafran troops appeared set on revenge on all northerners they met in Anioma land. At Ogwachiuku and Ubuluku, they killed Fulani as men they met. Beyond that, a band of Biafran forces operating in Anioma land raided the Okapi 3 oil field on May 5th, 1969, killed 10 Italian Ajip oil workers and abducted 30 other Italians, West Germans, Lebanese, and Nigerians. Ordinarily, the murder of unarmed civilians makes no military sense. However, locating the war within the context of the zero-sum game that shaped it, it was victory against the enemy. Such unwarranted massacre formed a great fulcrum around which the war revolved in Anioma land. Particularly when the tide turned and the federal troops took charge, it is impossible to capture the full killings endured by the Anioma in federal hands. A few examples will help illustrate some facts of the chapter and the tragedy of it all for Anioma. So here, Agbo. So there is it's a killing in self-defense. So one of the episodes in this regard was the supervised killing of the Igbos, like in Agbo, under the watchful eyes of federal troops of the 2nd Division, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel Muritala Muhammad, whose dreaded methods in other parts of the Midwest traveled ahead of him into Anioma land. Agbo people, whose traditional ruler bore the Igbo title, Obi, denied their Igbo identity. Out of fear and in defense of a new emergent identity, indigenes of Agbo joined soldiers of the 2nd Division, whose commander was installed as Odogu of Owa by the smart Obi of Owa, to fish out Igbos, including Anioma people, for killing. They killed their kind in self-defense. While some Eka have denied this, 3 independent sources confirmed it. The Agbo killings were perhaps the worst episode of the war in Anioma land, given the fact that an Anioma group joined in murdering their fellow people. Another area of killing during the federal onslaught on Anioma land was Utagba Uno. There, the Okpala Uku and his chiefs were killed in 1967 in his house, where they had gathered for a meeting with federal troops. The only survivor was Okpala Uku in council secretary. Federal troops claimed they assisted Biafrans to attack their stations around the community. However, the attack pales into insignificance when compared with the bigger tragedy that unfolded at Ishiagu in 1968. The tragedy of Ishiagu. Ishiagu was attacked on May 2nd, 1968, for becoming a threat to the Federal Army. By 1968, Ishiagu had emerged as a major market supplying Biafra with needed goods across the Niger. Secondly, the bushes behind Ishiagu held many Biafran soldiers, thus posing a threat to the Nigerian 102 Battalion stationed there. Ishiagu people were accused of collusion in Biafran attack on federal positions in the area to get a foothold on Anioma land and possibly recapture part of the Midwest. Biafran forces landed in the largely uncharted area of the western bank of the Niger, to the south of Asaba, in early 1968. This Biafran presence constantly harassed federal troops in the locale. Just days before the attack, a Biafran bomb blasted a federal squad around the nearby Unsuka junction. Unable to ward off attack from that angle, federal forces accused the people of colluding with Biafrans and vented their frustration on them. It is estimated that about 300 people, including the town's traditional ruler, Obi John Izeshino Onyema, were killed. The Obi was reportedly buried alive. The motives for the attack remain unknown. An eyewitness account from Chief Pius Onochai revealed that when federal troops arrived in Ishiagu in late 1967, people ran away to their farms, given the well-known notoriety of federal troops that went ahead of them to Ishiagu. On the encouragement of federal troops, many returned to town. Shortly after that, rumors began about the intention of federal forces to attack Ishiagu for supporting Biafran attacks on them. At the spread of these rumors, a particular Yoruba officer friend, Lieutenant Paulinus, informed him of the impending attack and advised him to relocate. He told his people, who doubted him, he alleged that some federal troops friendly with the townspeople, including Paulinus, were transferred before the arrival of the murderous troops. They arrived May 1st, 1968, and attacked on the next day under the leadership of Captain Patrick Idaosa, an Oguashioku-based veteran officer of Ishiagu origin in the area, had informed his people about the dreadful plans of the federal soldiers towards them. He was locked up at the battalion's headquarters in Ishiagu for spreading malicious rumors. When they eventually descended on the town, he was brought out and executed. As the killings went on, some energetic Ishiagu young men were reserved to dig huge graves for mass burials. Virtually all the houses in the area were destroyed, and those with zinc roofing sheets had them removed and taken away. Most who survived the dawn attack again emptied into the bush. It will appear that even with the tragic turn of events in the community, the occupying federal forces were dissatisfied with the general level of destruction visited on the town. Seeing that many Ishiagu residents escaped, federal troops invaded the hideouts around the town and killed many people in their farms' hideouts. One Joseph Osaji was beheaded by a federal soldier named Dan Becky in the bush. Many who sneaked into town from the bush to pick up needed items were shot by federal forces. The attack wiped out the whole Ishiagu. On a visit to the town, no house sighted appears older than 1970. A source at Ishiagu says a Wulu man and his pregnant wife trekking to Ishiagu after the killings were accused of being Biafran spies and shot dead by federal troops. The nature and consequences of the Ishiagu attack was simply too vicious in its larger ramifications to have been just aimed at giving the federal side an advantage in the struggle with Biafra for Anioma land. This angle becomes important against the background that the attack was not waged by northerners alone. Shai has insisted that federal troops of Ika, Yoruba, Edo, and Igbo origins were actively involved. It is difficult not to conclude that some of the killings in Anioma land were a continuation of the earlier September 1967 killings in other parts of Midwest against the Anioma. An ex-Nigerian soldier of Edo extraction who fought in Anioma land during the war justified the attacks on the Anioma by arguing it was in retaliation for the Igbo's invasion of Benin, which he alleged the Anioma supported actively. He described the invasion of Benin in sacrilegious terms and said those who aided it had to pay anyhow. You see how this tribal that has been with all of us since, and why some people the survivors had to deny that they were Igbos. And their descendants tomorrow will say, no, we are not Igbo, so please don't bring us to, we are not Igbo, we are not part of your Biafra. This is the fear factor, by the way. And it is time for all of you to drop that fear now, okay? And stop denying your Igbo connection. Nigeria will still kill you because they know you are Igbo. even if you deny it tomorrow. They will still kill you. Whether you support Biafra or not, they will still kill you. They will still believe that as Igbo, you are supporting Biafra anyway. So why do you want to possibly think you are safe by denying your Igbo-ness? I mean, your Igbo-ness. Why? Disaster of Oguashi Uku. Earlier on, Oguashi Uku had witnessed some senseless slaughter of civilians with very harsh consequences for the Onuku family. Federal troops had raced to Oguashi Uku from Umunede without any opposition until they encountered Biafran resistance at Oguashi Uku. After some skirmishes, Federal forces resorted to what became their customary practice in Anioma land by turning on unarmed civilians. This tactic, of course, to the area of least resistance left permanent marks on the history of the Onuku family. Before that, a background to the tragedy that befell the Onukus is necessary. The military situation in some section of Anioma land when federal troops entered Oguashiuku from the western Ubuluku end was unsettled. Retreating, Biafran forces camped at Isa on Oguashiuku's immediate west. On the approach of federal troops, some of them disappeared, dispersed into the bush and regrouped. Others continued their eastward retreats. Desperate Biafran forces needing to avoid being cut off by advancing federal forces from the Benin Wari ends were also still evacuating to the east from the old Abo division on Oguashiuku's southern flank and necessarily passed through Oguashiuku. The unimpeded nature of federal advance from Umunede meant Biafran's troops were still around Oguashiuku. That was the situation when federal forces entered the town. They met a nearly empty town as many inhabitants had fled. While in the town, federal troops clashed with a fragment of Biafran forces, suffering some casualties, including a commander. The decisive battle occurred between the post office and government primary school. Federal troops triumphed, with the Biafrans retreating eastward to Ibusa. A battle brought the unlucky Onuku family, whose house was in the vicinity, into the picture. Added to the previous day's losses, the second clash caused the federal side some casualties. Suspecting a conspiracy between the people and the Biafrans, federal troops turned on the Onuku family. Babatunde, Onuku, and 5 of his brothers, Iwe Adizia, Undufodu, Anisimbili, Obogu, and Augustine were lined up and killed by angry federal soldiers before their mother, Mrs. Onwu Ebuzie Onuku. Unable to bear the ordeal, she lost her mind, ran mad, and never recovered until she died in the late 1990s. Wow. Wow. Anyway, let me bring it up to your screen so that you can see what I'm reading. Okay. Wow, just wow. Right. The Onuku family tragedy demonstrated the callousness with which federal troops treated the Anioma during the war. A dreadful price was extracted from the Oguashiuku community for belonging to the Anioma community. For the Anioma, who the federal forces identified with Biafra, it was one more chapter of a bloody book on their travails in a conflict that put them right in the middle of hell. The Onuku family tragedy was not the only incidence of unarmed civilians being targeted for brutal treatment in Oguashiuku. The story of Afamefuna Elue is instructive for the cold shivers federal presence sent into the spines of even the seemingly powerful among the Anioma. This can be gleaned from the response to a question by the Obi of Oguashiuku on the death of Afamefuna Elue. As secretary of the Oguashiuku Development Union, Elue was a leading light in the town. Accused of being pro-Biafra, he was abducted by federal forces and his corpse dumped in a rubber plantation. Years later, his son asked the Obi why he could not save his father. The Obi's response was, when they went to Ishiagu, they buried the chief alive. I'm sorry about your father. I was not just ready for that kind of death. The response shows the Anioma threaded with caution in their dealings with federal troops, who sparked at the slightest provocation. The Anioma fear of federal troops was founded on their activities in the area. This can help us understand the destruction of the bridge across the Oboshi stream, which connected Oguashiuku and Ibusa, by some Ibusa youths and troops of the Biafra's retreating 12th Battalion, to prevent federal troops from extending the havoc visited on Oguashiuku to Ibusa. The destruction of the bridge prevented the federal troops from entering the Ibusa from the Oguashiuku end. They turned back to Oguashiuku at the broken bridge and connected Asaba through Azagba, Oguashi, entering Ibusa from Asaba end. Before they reversed at the broken Oboshi bridge, the town's ruling elite led by its oldest man, Obi Modi, the Diopa of Ibusa, who was over 100 then, waded through the Oboshi stream to meet and welcome federal troops at the Oguashiuku end of the broken bridge. Apart from Obi Modi, the welcome party included the charming Omu Igbuzo, Madam Unwa Oboshi, and other prominent people in the town. They waded through the stream to meet the soldiers at the other end. They probably left an indelible impression. On entering Ibusa, federal troops initially did not harass, torture, or shoot anyone. Despite the fact that individuals were not targeted for shooting, the people heard a lot. Ibusa has Asaba to the east and Oguashiuku to the west. Federal troops had visited both places, killing and brutalizing many. So when they entered the town, many fled. Some later returned as federal troops disappointed them. Meanwhile, unknown to federal troops, the bushes around Ibusa became major hub of opposition to federal presence. The Biafrans, still around deep in the forest of the town's Uzo Umuze, seized the opportunity of the population in hiding to recruit massively into our ranks. For a time, all was quiet. The uneasy calm snapped on Easter Monday, April 16, 1968, when a Biafran squad slipped in and attacked the St. Michael's Primary School camp of federal troops, inflicting some casualties. This created a new equation in the relationship between the Ibusa people and the federal troops. Federal troops attacked and killed about 20 people in retaliation. It took the intervention of the town's Catholic parish priest, John Osea, and the principal of St. Thomas's College, the then Reverend Father Anthony Buji, to stop the carnage. Most inhabitants of the town fled into the bush. Only the infirm and the very determined remained. Majority of the latter group were relocated to the refugee camp at St. Patrick's College, Asaba, by federal troops as Biafran infiltration continued. AG federal troops brutalized or shot anyone who sauntered into town from the bush, classifying them as Biafran spies. Federal troops were quite cruel towards the Anioma. Three of their spiteful activities around the Busa need recollecting. While the people of Umudi were escaping into the bush for safety, they relocated a blind old woman, Martha Emeshie, from her house to the outskirts of the town. Family members visited her occasionally to assist her as she lived alone in an emergency shelter. One day, federal troop poured fuel on a makeshift thatch hut and roasted her to death. Another incident of senseless killings involved two senior bankers at Barclays Bank, Asaba, Joseph Oyemem and Emmanuel Anuchi Obolu, were branch manager and accountant respectively. According to reports, shortly before the Easter of 1968, 3 soldiers stormed the bank and demanded for the keys to the bank's safe from the accountant, His refuser earned him abduction alongside the manager. Their corpses were later found on the Ibusa Asaba Road. And Ogbolu family believes the dastardly act was perpetrated by a Captain Patrick Idahosa-led squad of the Nigerian Army. Possibly due to the power of Barclays Bank and the world financial circles, pressure mounted on federal authorities to act. The alleged perpetrators were court-martialed and executed. On Captain Idahosa, nothing was heard of the crime from the Nigerian Army. The catastrophe of Asaba. What ranks as the greatest mass slaughter of the war in Anioma land took place at Asaba. The extent of the civilian massacre there involving troops of 2nd Division will always remain difficult to put into words. In intensity, scope, and the sheer quantum of the crudity, all the other killings in Anioma land will, even when put together, rank below what engulfed Asaba in early October 1967. The Asaba episode can be understood within the context of the fight for Asaba between the contending forces. Federal troops had entered Asaba through Okpanam End. That was not, however, until they overcame a Biafran resistance at Okute, Igbo. The battle for Asaba was a serious pitched battles. Two of them stand out. The first was the Battle of Okute, Igbo, a few kilometers from Asaba. The second was the Battle for St. Patrick's College. Retreating Biafran troops from other parts of the Midwest had built up a strong defensive position at Okute, Igbo, and waited for advancing federal troops. Asaba was the last place in the Midwest before the Niger and Onitsha, which federal forces coveted. It was therefore defended by a Biafran brigade commanded by an Anioma son, Colonel Joe Achuzia. He had set up an operations headquarters in Asaba days before the arrival of federal troops. He was acting Biafran Midwest Divisional Commander. After the withdrawal from Umunede, he had crossed the Niger to Enugu on October 2nd, 1967, to seek audience with Ojukwu on the Midwest situation, requesting that an officer of Anioma origin be appointed divisional commander for the Midwest operations. Colonel Unwawo, who was appointed to resume duties immediately, could not arrive at Asaba before federal troops arrived at Asaba. It became Achuzia's lot to defend Asaba against federal assault. Biafran troops had dug in at Okute Igbo and St. Patrick's College. At the Battle of Okute Igbo, a top federal commander, Colonel Godwin Ali, was shot on the chest and evacuated from the front, feared dead. Biafran troops recoiled to their St. Patrick's College defensive position. The superior push of federal troops made continued defense of that position untenable. Biafran troops then withdrew from their last dug-in position in Anioma land. The fierceness of the battle for Asaba did not temper itself even inside the town. The bullet marks on the Asaba water reservoir, still visible to the naked eyes today, tells a story of how bullets flew all over. It ended in defeat for Biafran forces, who retreated across the Niger to Onitsha in the evening of October 4th, 1967. Excuse me. The following day, the Niger bridge was blown up by the Biafran army. No one knows exactly why federal troops killed civilians in Asaba the way they did. We know, however, that Asaba was the only place in Anioma land where federal troops were stiffly resisted and engaged in battles in real war situations. There is a suspicion that it was the battles in Asaba that ended in the killings. It was the battle in Asaba that ended in the killings, right? Federal soldiers were known to have complained that Asaba people colluded with Biafran troops. Federal troops fought their real battles in Anioma land in Asaba. Their casualties were high and thought to include Colonel Ali. It is possible that the cumulative anger arising from this drove federal forces into visiting their frustrations on scapegoats they held responsible for their itches. We can also classify the Asaba episode as a continuation of Federal Army's anti-Igbo tendencies. They demonstrated their readiness to kill the Anioma population while hanging on to flimsy excuse of provocation in Rutagba, Uno, and Ogua, Si, Uku. Asaba was just another Anioma town. So the pattern was repeated. Asaba is Igbo land. Let's be very clear. When you hear about Anioma, they are talking about the Igbos. Asaba in Delta states, the land, the people there, they were Igbos. But this is why they would deny that they are Igbos. Asaba and the rest of them, those of them who are denying their Igbo-ness, right? This is why. I hope you are following. So again, let's go on. So they said they demonstrated their readiness to kill the Anioma population, you know. Asaba was just another Anioma town. So the pattern was repeated. It has been established that between October 5th and 7th, 1967, over 400 unarmed civilians were killed by Nigerian soldiers in Asaba. Emma Okocha has drawn up a list of 472 persons as having been killed in bizarre circumstances in Asaba. Bird and Otanele put the number at about 1,000. Olusegun Obasanjo, one of the top federal commanders in the war, has tried to make light of the tragic Asaba episode by claiming that the massacre was an event involving some 50 civilians in Asaba without the knowledge of or approval of senior or superior officers. Troops of 81 Brigade carried away by execution those civilians carried away for execution those civilians whom they suspected to be spying on them on behalf of these rebels after. Federal troops had suffered heavy casualties from surprise attacks by the rebels. So Obasanjo, who later became the president in Nigeria, military and civilian, decided to report the death of over 1,000 civilians slaughtered by this Hausa Fulani troops, the murderous Nigerian troop, right? He classified it as just 50 people. That's how they rewrote the history. That's how they advise the survivors. Don't ever claim you be Igbo again, no. Because we believe that you are working for the Igbos. That's why you know. And today, Delta State, Delta Asaba. Asaba is the capital of Delta State. Delta State is now classified as part of the Niger Delta region. Just in case if you are from Niger Delta or you are from Delta State and your identity crisis problem is giving you a bit of life plus migraine because you have spent all your life to try to deny that you think the Igbos are forcing you to come and join them. No, nobody should be forcing anybody from Asaba that says they are not Igbos. These are people who are the product of the surviving victims of the Asaba massacre. The ones that believe that the way they could protect their species, protect themselves and their descendants is to say they are not Igbos and they will never be Igbos. These are people who have lost their identities. They are battling with it. And I feel sorry for you. Honestly, I do. But again, let's continue. Okay. So the claim does not add up. That more than 400 people were spying for Biafra in Asaba is incredible. The nature of the killings cannot possibly justify this charge. The federal troops appeared prejudiced against the people and openly threatened Asaba residents with death. A survivor of the Asaba killings recalled how a Nigerian soldier declared his hatred for all Igbo people who must die. The killings seem to have been inspired by hate. The facts of the killings seem to bear this out. In one instance, people were invited to prearranged welcome ceremonies for federal forces. In the process of the welcome, men were separated from women and shot. In some other cases, federal troops visited family houses to carry out killings. At other times, people were gathered at police posts, names called out from a list, and people shot. Most of those killed were buried in mass graves, the biggest of which is at Ogbeosowe. The way the killings went and the caliber of some of the victims suggests that some of them were targeted killings. The list of the Asaba dead included Mr. Sylvester Ugo, a retiree and supposedly Anioma's wealthiest personality of the era. LG Guam, former director of the National Archives, Ibadan, was also killed and his historical documents destroyed or carted away. Killed also were the resident doctor of the Asaba General Hospital, Dr. Eugene Akule, and one of Nigeria's leading athletes of that era, Sidney Asiodu. The killers in Asaba were reportedly armed with lists of who must die. PIG Oyebobi's name was probably on such a list. He was an administrative officer in the Midwest Civil Service before the war. He was apparently targeted in Asaba when he was attacked in his family house, shot and left for dead. He survived the attack and thereafter escaped to Achala Ibusa, where he received initial treatment. In order to deter the soldiers from coming back for him, his family organized a phantom burial for him, complete with a grave. This they showed to federal troops who came back to ensure that he died. His experience of the whole episode, in his words, is very instructive. In October 1967, federal troops entered Asaba. On October 7, people carried dancing groups to receive them at Ogbesowe. They were surrounded and mowed down. Most people who heard what happened ran away to surrounding villages. I didn't run. On October 8, I had my own baptism. I was sitting with an uncle and some relations in a house near my father's house, and we were chatting when we suddenly saw some soldiers walk past at about 3 p.m. There were 4 of them. Their leader, I guess, a lieutenant, asked us if there were women and children here. I answered, saying no. Then he just said, kill them. I thought it was a joke, but a soldier came in and opened fires point blank at me. I was surprised that I was still conscious when I opened my eyes. I tried to be calm. It was a serious matter. I just kept calm, thinking that was the end and that they will go away, but they didn't. I think the same officer came back and started touching us one by one. When he touched me, he said, "This one has not died. Come and shoot him again." I heard another shot, but surprisingly, I was still not dead. Then he checked again and said that I was dead and that they should go. Professor Stanley Okafor, who was in Asaba then and accompanied his father to the Asaba police station, avers that names were called out from a list. The people who responded were taken behind the building and executed. His father, a senior civil servant in the Midwest before the war, was killed, but not at the police station by federal troops, and his stolen car later recovered in Lagos from an army officer. A deeper perspective of the Asaba tragedy comes from survivors who lived through it and still nurse the emotional scars. One of them said that with the way the killings went, she thought the world had ended. The Asaba episode represented the activities of a hate-filled group. It was a nightmarish experience for the people. It involved all sorts of evil. According to Stanley Okafor, in quote, the crimes and human rights abuses perpetrated by the federal troops in Asaba were unimaginable. They murdered, they stole, they looted, they raped. An informant who was in Asaba during the killings said the following: "The Asaba story can only be told by people from the angle of what they saw. The full story would never be known. I knew so many of the dead. All I and women like me did was to encourage our sons, husbands, and brothers to stay in hiding while we monitored events and helped bury the dead." The president of Asaba Development Association, Dr. Louis Odogu, said Asaba people will never forget their wartime experiences. A partnership has been forged with the University of South Florida to establish a Holocaust museum for the Asaba dead. A memorial has also been erected at Ogbesowe to honor the dead. The deep pain of the killings by federal troops in Anioma land lingers for those who lost dear ones it has been dismissed as inconsequential and publicly denied when historical facts state otherwise. For instance, IBM Aruna, successor to Muritala Muhammad as 2nd Division Commander, boldly told Oputa panel he owed no apologies for the conduct of troops that eventually came under his command. Olusegun Obasanjo, a leading federal commander in the war and later Nigeria's military head of states and civilian president, commented on Asaba calamity in a condescending manner, dismissing it with the claim that federal troops killed 50 people who were spying for Biafra in an operation that was not approved by senior officers. He did not say how many of the killers were court-martialed for an illegal operation. The puzzling fact is the same Obasanjo visited Asaba on October 13, 1967. The killing started on October 6, 7 days before his visit. Over 400 people were killed in Asaba by the Nigerian army. It is amazing that the victims, including very senior citizens, children and women, were part of the Biafran spying ring. Right. It is a historical fact that Nigeria's wartime head of state, Yakubu Gowon, has apologized for the conduct of federal troops in Asaba. Part of it reads, accept my apologies on behalf of the federal military government on the activities of the soldiers in Asaba during the Civil War. I'm sorry for what happened, especially to those people who lost families. It was not out of malice, but an accident of war. I hope Asaba people will accept this apology, even if it is belated. I felt very touched, being the one in charge at that time. Certainly, it is not something I would have approved of whatsoever. I was made ignorant of it. Gowon's apology appears designed to mislead and conceal. Extant evidence smothers his claim of being unaware of the killing at the time. His wartime commissioner for information, Chief Anthony Enahoro, revealed that Gowon knew more than his apology contained. According to him, at a reconciliatory meeting with some Igbos in New Jersey, USA in 1998, Enahoro said, I was the one that stopped late General Muritala Muhammad from further massacre of innocent children and mothers. At a point when Britain refused to sell further arms to Nigeria because they had ample evidence from the Red Cross of the federal forces killing innocent civilians, I confronted Gowon with the facts and that the only way I can get Britain through my contacts with their High Commission to resume supplying of weapons to Nigeria was that Muritala had to leave the war sector. Either Muhammad leaves or I will leave his cabinet. Gowon told me he was willing to call a meeting on the condition I will be the one to confront Muritala. If there was anybody that Gowon feared so much, it was Muritala Muhammad. At the meeting of the Federal Executive Council, I confronted Muritala with elaborate evidence, complete with photographs. He was livid, angry. He could not refute them, so he resorted to calling me all sorts of names. I was instrumental to his withdrawal from that sector and subsequent appointment as a minister. Given what Gowon knew, his claim of ignorance is suspect and his apology meant to cover up the crime of mass murder known to him. The awful treatment meted out to the Asaba people about sums up what the Anioma suffered in a war termed civil. There's nothing civil about that war. It was a genocide. With wartime atrocities in Asaba and Anioma land in general, it is difficult not to speak of Nigeria and his army in roguish terms. Despite Gowon's apology, the scars remain and the painful memories endure. It was an appalling act of crass callousness that wrecked many dreams and destroyed scores of families. It wiped out many men and created many female head of households. Those ignorant of what happened or what occurred in Asaba spoke of Asaba women in derisive terms. It made the gloom even darker. The war probably hit its lowest point in Anioma land. Beyond describing the Asaba killings in genocidal terms, Senator Uche Chukwumerije has stated that, in quote, if the Civil War was one black spot in the history of Nigeria and if blackness was degrees, Asaba is the blackest spot in Nigerian history. What the Nigerian army did in Anioma land was simply abominable. In the hands of the Federal Army, the Anioma were defenseless, as they were neither Biafrans nor Nigerians then. The Lacune was exploited by federal troops with impunity. The war condemned them to a terrible fate in the hands of a revenge-seeking army. They were simply abandoned to their fate. Even an international observer team that toured 2nd Division's area of operation between September 24th and November 23rd, 1968, glossed over massive evidence of atrocious acts perpetrated by federal troops in Anioma land and gave the Nigerian army a clean bill of conduct. In denying the attempted systemic destruction of sections of the Anioma community, the world simply told the Anioma that history is always written by the winner. Their disastrous experience continues to live with them. Perhaps the totality of the Anioma experience in the hands of the Nigerian state and its army can be summed up in the words of Professor Soyinka. I won't quote that. That's a useless man. Conclusion: the entry of the Civil War into Anioma land took the fight to the people in their home. As this work has shown, there were two sides to the killings of unarmed civilians during the Nigerian Civil War in Anioma land. One involved the Biafrans, while the other was perpetrated by federal troops. The last was more pervasive. Though the Anioma tried to be ambivalent in their choice, they were stereotyped and suffered massacres as a consequence. The tragedy of the Anioma people will be better appreciated when some issues are taken into consideration. The attacks of the Igbos, including the Anioma, happened in the north in May, July, August, September, October 1966. Anioma elite in the north ran home to Anioma land and other parts of the Midwest before the war. Part of what the war brought to the table for Anioma were attacks on them in Benin City and other Midwestern towns. Again, they ran home to their ancestral towns. The invasion of their towns and villages by federal troops exposed them to further attacks, and they were buffeted upon with hardly anywhere to run to. Even in their villages, they became displaced and went into hiding. Those of them who encountered federal troops were killed. This explains why the Anioma lost some of their best in the war. Utagba, Uno, Ishiagu, Oguashiuku, Agbo, Ibusa, Asaba, and other points where the innocent Anioma blood was shed are symptomatic of what is often denied in Nigerian official cycles, that the Civil War was an ethnic event. It was a deep manifestation of a system that failed and found scapegoats among its fold to blame and to massacre as culprits. With the nature of the killings in Anioma land by federal troops, it is difficult to escape the conclusion that there were indiscriminate killing intentions. It is easy to see that the Anioma were targeted for destruction. Muritala Muhammad, seen as a national hero in Nigeria, the commander of the 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army, must share a large bulk of the blame for the blatant massacre of the Anioma under his watch. On the whole, combatants in the war in Anioma land gloried in killing defenseless civilians. Their actions exposes the rotten possibility of ethno-regional conflict and the larger tragic nature of war. Wars makes us lose our humanity, but it should never be so. The massacre of defenseless civilians in Anioma land in the course of the Nigerian Civil War continues to reverberate today, perhaps tomorrow, and possibly forever. And that's the end. So you can check all the references and all of that as well. The link is in the comment section as well. You should probably take a look at it up if you want to, okay? So the dark side of Nigeria history that they surely don't want you to see. So thank you so much, everyone. I am going to see you later. Enjoy the rest of your day, okay? Good afternoon.
dòdò.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Maiyegun ti dé o, ọ̀rẹ́ ará ìlú.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Maiyegun já wa sí.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Àṣírí ọ̀jẹ̀lú kì í bò níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Bó bá ṣe eré, àní Maiyegun máa wí.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Ó sì tún ṣe eré, wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Maiyegun diary, diary politico.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Godfatherism kò sí lọ́rọ̀ Maiyegun.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Ẹ farabalẹ̀ sẹ́ o kẹgọ́rọ̀ lẹ́nu o.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Àní Maiyegun làwa mọ̀ tó dòdòdò.
Maiyegun diary, na ibi number one.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé. Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí Facebook.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Lórí YouTube.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bọ́ bàbá gbé wúrẹ́.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ijó ìgbádìyẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bí pẹ̀sìdó bá rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Bí gómìnà kówó jẹ.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọlọ́pàá tí ń darí bá.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Aṣòfin tí ń rúfin o.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Òpùrọ́ olóṣèlú.
Maiyegun máa wí.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì.
Maiyegun ti dé.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dèrò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀ o, Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò fẹ́ bẹ̀. Wọ́n fowó bẹ́ẹ̀, Maiyegun ó sọ pé wọ́n ò fẹ́ bẹ̀. Oníkan ṣáàtì ṣe èyí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe fáwọn ará ìlú tó gbé wọn débẹ̀ o.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní má ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Ha! Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Kì máa yí ṣe eré, ọ̀rọ̀ yìí kì í ṣe ẹ̀fẹ̀. Ẹni bá ti lè lẹ́bọ̀ lẹ́rù o, ọmọ bá dèrò kàṣàyè tú wọn síta.
Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Maiyegun ti dé. Gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe, ọmọ bá dẹ́rọ̀ ò ní fi wọ́n níran.
Tẹnitẹni ọmọ Maiyegun ọ̀rẹ́ ara ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni.
mo fọlọ́run ṣọ́ ẹ̀ báàkì lẹ́bù lóòótọ́ olódodo ìlú ọ̀tá ìlú mọ̀mọ́ ni ìwọ ṣá máa ń ṣọ́ra kò sì mọ́ bẹ̀rù bọ́tà ń lè rí bóníṣègùn lé káwọn mọ̀mọ́ fi ṣera wọn ni ó ti dẹrùn tí wọn ò gbọ́dọ̀ sì mọ́ bẹ̀. èèpo ọ̀gọ̀lọ́mọ bá dérò tàjẹ́ ò gbọ́dọ̀ jẹ́ ó ti jọba lórí abínú ẹni kò sì mọ́ fòyà àìsíwọ́lu ní ẹnìkẹ́ ìgbódì ẹyin lábàrá o ó kó ẹni tó bá dán o àkàmù Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì o ẹni bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dèrò òní fi wọ́n níran o.
Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì Maiyegun ti dé gbogbo ọ̀jẹ̀lú ẹ̀ túnra kì ṣùgbọ́n ní bá ti ṣe yìí tó yẹ kí wọ́n ṣe ọmọ bá dẹ̀rọ̀ òní fi wọ́n níran.